The radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody. Welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Monday, January 19th. It is our second show of the day. I hope you caught the interview earlier today with our healthcare experts. All right, so this evening show, we kind of reversed it. Usually we do the interview in the evening, but today we're going to do our news update in the evening and the interview we did already. All right, anything to remind you of? Not really. Remember, Tuesday's show, tomorrow's show, is typically an hour later than usual, and it might be even later than that. So tomorrow will not be a usual time. It'll be late. Anyway, other than that, the rest of the week should be fine. Not traveling until the week after that. And what else do I want to remind you of? Nothing really. Let's just jump into the insanity. Today's show is all about insanity. I mean, one insane individual in particular. I mean, almost every show is about him because he dominates the news. He sucks the air out of any other news story that exists. But today is all about the insanity that Trump is creating. Let's start with Greenland, the island of Greenland. That Trump has had his eye on, really in the first administration, didn't do much then, and now has come back in the second administration to demand that Denmark hand over Greenland, or the Greenland sell to the United States or whatever. But the rhetoric is getting more and more aggressive with time. It's becoming more and more, we're just going to take it. And that was the rhetoric last week. Last week, the rhetoric got to the point of Donald Trump saying, we're just going to take it. We're going to annex it. Stephen Miller said on television, he said, the new domain of international competition is going to be polar competition. As if, I mean, that's true. There's going to be increased polar competition, but there's competition in lots of other places. Look at Ukraine. Look at the South China Sea. Anyway, there is more and more resources are being spent by our nation's adversaries and rivals is the ability to control movement, navigation, lanes of travel in the polar and Arctic region. And that's why we need Greenland, we're told. Now, remember, we have NATO allies to control much of the Arctic region. A big ally is, we've got Norway. And then we've got Denmark, who controls Greenland, who controls a big chunk of the Arctic region. And then, of course, the biggest chunk of the Arctic region that is not held by the Russians is held by the Canadians. You would think we would be really nice to Canadians because we need them for the defense of the Arctic region. But no, we're nasty to Canadians, and indeed have encouraged the Canadians, or not encouraged, but created an incentive structure where it makes sense for the Canadians to rush to the Chinese and get attention and love from them instead of from us. But again, overall, NATO controls a big chunk of the Arctic, and through our NATO allies and working with our NATO allies, we could secure the Arctic region against Russia and China. China's at a humongous disadvantage because it actually has no access to the Arctic region. It is not an Arctic nation. It doesn't have any allies other than maybe now Canada with access to the Arctic region. China's at a huge disadvantage. It doesn't have a navy that can really leave the South China Sea easily without sacrificing deterrence in the South China Sea. There is what is exactly the risk? Anyway, Miller adds that Denmark cannot defend Greenland. It's too weak of a military and too small of an economy. He says, quote, to control the territory, and this is according to, he says, 500 years of law, 500 years of law. To control a territory, you have to be able to defend a territory, improve a territory, inhabit a territory. Denmark has failed at every single one of these tests. Really, it seems to control the territory. It's been able to defend it because nobody's attacked it, and it's improved both Greenland and of course inhabited the territory. Who the hell wants to live in Greenland? Only about 55,000 people. But by this logic, and this is the logic, by the way, of might makes right. In other words, we, the United States, can take Greenland. And therefore, we should take it. Denmark cannot defend it, and therefore 500 years of law says that they should not own it. Miller has stated previously, nobody's going to fight the United States militarily over the future of Greenland. So might makes right. We're just going to waltz in there and take it. I mean, if that's the logic, then why not just take Denmark as well? You know, they have this incredibly valuable pharmaceutical company, Novo Nordisk, the one that makes the GLP-1 drugs. We should just take Denmark. What the hell? They can't defend it, not against the United States. And while we're at it, why don't we just take Scandinavia? I mean, Bernie Sanders keeps saying he wants America to become Scandinavia. Instead of becoming Scandinavia, we could just take Scandinavia over because we're stronger and they can't defend it against us, so they don't deserve it. Might makes right. Anyway, Trump increased the rhetoric last week about all this, and the Europeans kind of said, okay, we're sending some troops over to reinforce our position in Greenland. You know, it's a strategic risk. Russians, Trump says, everywhere, the Chinese everywhere. There's no sighting of any Chinese ships in Greenland. I mean, Russia, sure, but no, Chinese are not there. Anyway, so, and this is kind of funny and sad, but really, really funny. A stand-up comedian in Israel did a whole skit about this, and I said, I have to try to recreate the skit for you. So, Germany, Sweden, France, Norway, and the Netherlands, and Finland. So Germany, Sweden, France, Norway, the Netherlands, and Finland, all confirmed that they're sending, this is last week, military personnel to Greenland. Again, in order to boost its capabilities and protect it. We'll see how Trump interpreted it in a minute. Right? This is, wow, these people are serious. This is big stuff. All right. So Finland announced that it is sending 2 military liaison officers. I mean, these 2, I mean, they're Vikings after, well, no, I think actually Finland is not technically a Vikings. So I don't know what they are. But, you know, they're 2 big Finns. So, you know, I think they can stand down the U.S. or the Russian fleet or the Russian whatever or American. So 2. I mean, this is major European commitment. The Netherlands, in a massive show of solidarity with Denmark, and in order to boost the ability, oops, what did I do here? In order to boost the ability of Greenland to defend itself, is sending one whole soldier from the Netherlands is going to stand up to, I don't know, the Americans, the Russians, whoever lands up invading the place. I mean, imagine being the soldier of the Netherlands who gets chosen, right? Hey, Johan, congratulations. You just got a plum assignment. We're sending you to Greenland. I mean, it's cold enough right now in the Netherlands. He's going to Greenland. And it's like, how many troops am I commanding? No, just you. You're going all alone. What am I supposed to do there? Help defend Greenland against Germany. The mighty German nation is sending 13 military personnel to Greenland. I mean, this is, I don't know, Europe is outdoing itself. I'm not sure how any military in the world will be able to stand up to the forces that Europe is arraying in Greenland. Anyway, Trump, give me 1 second. You know, Trump did not like this. He felt like this was an insult because hey, these troops might be used against the United States of America, and this is an insult. And you know, of course, the back and forth all last week was around NATO and the United States. You know, basically, so Trump decided over the weekend to raise tariffs on European countries that have sent troops, all those, that one soldier from the Netherlands is going to cost the Netherlands. And so the one soldier is going to have tariffs of 10%, escalating after June to much higher, 25%, on the European countries that send troops to Greenland. Because how dare they? They should just hand Greenland over to the United States. So Trump was furious. And then Europe went back and said, all right, if you're going to put tariffs on us, we're withdrawing from our previous trade agreement, and we're threatening to initiate this, you know, I guess the nuclear option of trade, where it would fall under this provision of the EU that would basically make it very, very hard for American businesses to sell anything in Europe. So anyway, yesterday, last week and over the weekend, massive escalation in rhetoric around Greenland, tariffs, troops. We're just going to take it over. We don't need any of it, and speculation about NATO falling apart. NATO should be broken up. United States leaving NATO. It's just unbelievable. I mean, anyway, the rhetoric escalated to levels of hysteria, and again, threats, a lot of threats, and a trade war, biggest trade war potentially between the United States and Europe since Smoot-Hawley in the 1930s. So. Add to this mixture, right? Mixture, United States, and add to this the fact that Trump feels snubbed over the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, I think you saw, I didn't talk about this, but you saw last week that Machado, the recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize from Venezuela, came to the White House and literally handed over to Trump her Nobel Peace Prize. And he proudly represented it. He didn't do, you know, no need. It's yours. It's got your name on it. You keep it. No, he took it. He took it. I mean, a lot of good memes about Trump demanding all the gold medals from all gold medal recipients in the Olympics. And he got a photo of Machado and him, and he's all proud with his Nobel Peace Prize. Anyway, Norway is kind of a little pissed off about this because they awarded it to her, and they didn't award it to him, and he's taken it. And it just, I mean, you can't make this up. I mean, if Ayn Rand has written this into Atlas Shrugged, everybody would have said, no, this is ludicrous. No human being of this character and this mentality and this stupidity could ever be president of the United States. It's just impossible. It would never happen. She can't, I mean, her villains are just ridiculous. No, this is, I mean, even Ayn Rand couldn't even imagine this. Anyway, he's pissed off for that. So over the weekend, he wrote the following letter to the president to the Prime Minister, of Norway. And notice, I'm linking Trump being upset about the Nobel Prize to his attitude towards Greenland, and people would say, Yaron, that's just TDS again. TDS. It's got nothing to do. I mean, he's upset about the Nobel Prize, fine, but the Greenland is strategic. The strategic reason has nothing to do with the Nobel Prize, that's TDS, you're making that connection. So this is Trump in a letter to the Prime Minister of Norway that is being released and was actually distributed to some other people. It was forwarded by the White House National Security Council to ambassadors in Washington, different country ambassadors, right? Dear Johannes, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America. Denmark cannot protect that land from Russia or China. And why do they have a right of ownership anyway? There are no written documents. It's only a boat that landed there 300 years ago. But we had boats landing there also. I have done more for NATO than any person since its founding. And now NATO should do something for the United States. The world is not secure unless we have complete and total, all capitalized, control, capitalized, of Greenland. Thank you. So, President Trump is pissed off. I mean, royally pissed off. Not a little bit, royally pissed off that he did not get the Peace Prize. He is blaming the Norwegian government and, by extension, all of NATO for not giving him a Peace Prize. And now it's time for him, since he hasn't in the past, to pursue American self-interest at the expense of peace towards war, because he knows he's not going to get the Peace Prize anyway. So he's demanding Norway support the claim and NATO support the claim of the United States to Greenland. Now, you can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, it's stupid, it's ahistorical, it's ridiculous, but Greenland's been Danish territory for centuries. Danish citizens, its residents are Danish citizens, they vote in Danish elections. In 1916, the United States actually signed a document that recognized Greenland as part of Denmark. So the United States has officially recognized Greenland as part of Denmark. There's just nothing there. And, there's no national security reason to take Greenland. The United States has the ability, and the European countries of Denmark have reconfirmed the United States' ability to stage whatever weapon systems they want in Denmark. They have the ability to put, there were 30,000 American troops in Greenland, not Denmark, in Greenland. During the Cold War, they could return to those levels. Denmark has no problem with that. The U.S. Navy can patrol the coast of Greenland to prevent Russian boats from reaching it. There's zero. I mean, if rare earth materials is the issue, the problem with Greenland rare earth materials is not that they don't want to try to go and get them. It's that nobody will invest in getting them. That is, it's super expensive. Why? Why is it expensive to mine for rare earth materials in Greenland? Because it's cold. Because it's Greenland. Because it's covered with ice. Because only 55,000 people live in this place, which is the size of a quarter of continental United States. It is massive. It's 25% larger than Alaska. It's huge, but nobody lives there because well, I won't say it's cold because, Michigan is cold and all you Michiganers live in Michigan. But it's cold even for Michiganians or whatever, right? It's really cold. And it's rocky. and it's difficult. And to get from, and it doesn't have the infrastructure in the sense of the roads, railroad, or whatever infrastructure you need to get the mine material to the ports. Somebody would have to invest a lot of money to do all that. And the fact is that the private sector is not interested. It's just too expensive. There are other sources of rare earth materials that are easier to get to. But if the United States companies want to invest in it, or if the U.S. companies want to invest in mining the resources of the Arctic, whatever that involves, Denmark is not going to stop them. Denmark is going to sign agreements with them and let them do it. So it's all bogus. Now, not according to Secretary Bessent. Now, remember, Secretary Bessent, this is Treasury Secretary, is supposed to be the adult in the room. He's supposed to be the one person in the Trump administration that actually still has a mind, they say. Now, I don't think he ever had. I don't think there's any reason to believe he has, given his pronouncements on tariffs and everything else and budgets and things. The guy's completely lost it. The Fed, interest rates, completely lost it. It's become a Trump zombie. This is Secretary Bessent. Quote, Greenland is essential to the U.S. national security. President Trump is being strategic. He's looking beyond this year. He's looking beyond next year to what could happen for battle in the Arctic. We are not going to outsource our national security. No, nobody's asking you to. And by the way, NATO is not outsourcing. You dominate NATO. We dominate NATO. That's not outsourcing our national security. I mean, what can't you justify by these kind of arguments? Any kind of military action you want. So it's a national emergency. Taking Greenland by force, there's no justice in it. It's illegal under U.S. law. It should go to Congress. I mean, I don't think it would even get a majority of Republicans in the Senate. I doubt it would even get a majority of Republicans in the House. It's unbelievably unpopular. It's a stupid idea. It wouldn't get congressional approval. And it's clearly illegal without congressional approval. There's just no justification for it. It would be a major declaration of war on Denmark and really on NATO. I mean, Article 5 of the NATO Charter would be triggered, and Canada would be at war with us. And Canada said that they would supposedly view it as an act of war against them if Greenland was invaded. Is that the priority? Right? You would think that if we actually had a strategic view about Russia and China and wanted to combat them, we would be shoring up our allies. We would be investing in our alliances. We would be building those up to present a united front, which I think could not be defeated. Russia on the European side and with our Asian allies vis-a-vis China. But we're not doing either one of those things. We're just pissing everybody off and establishing it unequivocally that we are not to be relied on, that we cannot be trusted, that we function from whim and nothing else. So we're doing exactly the opposite of what you'd expect if you had a strategic view. Now, interestingly enough, if you think about strategic views, the Trump administration put up a national security document, which we talked about on the show a few weeks ago, which was Russia and China and, the New Monroe Doctrine and all of that. But guess what wasn't mentioned in that? This is the strategy to take on Russia and China in a multipolar war and world and how to dominate our hemisphere. What was the one country not mentioned in the entire frigging document? One, not mentioned. and that is Greenland. You would think that if Greenland is so important for American national security, then in the national security strategy document that the Trump administration put together from scratch, they would mention that Greenland is important. They don't even mention it. Now, a conflict with Europe is going to be problematic for everybody involved, but primarily for the Europeans. Europeans are in trouble. The reality is that Europe depends on the United States, for example, for natural gas. Used to depend on Russia, now depends on the US. Now, there's a sense in which this is just perfect, right? Because the reality is the Europeans have enough natural gas in mainland Europe to deal with, to power their energy needs. They don't need to import it from the US or anywhere else. It's right there in Europe. UK has vast resources of natural gas. So does Poland and Germany. In order to get to it, you would have to do, I guess, what the Europeans consider the unthinkable. The unthinkable. What is the unthinkable? You would have to frack. That anti-life, anti-humanity, anti-whatever fracking. You'd have to frack. But the reality is that fracking would unleash a massive quantity of natural gas in Europe. In Europe. Which would not, I mean, yeah, it would take some resources, but Europeans have the money. The infrastructure is there in terms of roads and everything. Pipelines exist in Europe. It's not that hard. Now, it couldn't be done from today to tomorrow. It would take years. But they could have started this 20 years ago. They could have started it 10 years ago. They could have started it the day the Ukraine war started. They could have started it many times over. And they haven't. So the fact that they depend on U.S. oil, natural gas, they get 45.3% of their natural gas from LNG from the United States. They get some from Russia, still from Russia. And then they get some from the Middle East. And Norway's the one country that still provides natural gas and other things. Petroleum oil, they get 16.1% from the United States, and then they get most of the rest from the Middle East. And again, Norway provides a big chunk, North Sea drilling in Norway. I mean, the UK could frack. There's more oil in the North Sea. There are lots of things that are made possible. I mean, look, the reality is that if Trump tries to take Greenland by force, NATO is finished. I don't think Trump cares, but NATO is finished. I don't know how he justifies it constitutionally, but we have already discussed the fact that our Constitution is not working right now because Congress is not willing to do its job. Now, if he invaded Greenland, would he be impeached? Supposedly, this is supposedly, Republicans in Congress are telling Trump that if he invades Greenland, his presidency is over. Do you believe that? I don't know. I don't know if to believe that, but that's what I'm hearing. Now, taking Greenland is not new. Harry Truman made an offer in 1948 to buy Denmark, and buying makes a lot of sense, although we'll get to buying in a minute. But no president in history of the United States has threatened Denmark with taking it by force. And who is the one party in the world out there? Who is the one party that will rejoice at the collapse of NATO? Who is the one party just rubbing their hands, just with the prospects of the United States taking over Greenland. Who thinks this is amazing and fantastic, right? The Kremlin, Putin. Here's Kremlin's spokesman, Dmitry Peskov. International experts believe that by resolving Greenland's incorporation, Trump will suddenly go down in history. Not only in U.S. history, but world history. They're egging him on. They're poking him. Go do it, go do it. You'll go down in world history. So, yeah, they want it. They want NATO to, whether it shatters or not, they want the U.S. and Europe to be at loggerheads. They want the U.S. and Europe to be fighting. Russia's saying, we're not threatening Greenland, but we're happy to watch Trump destroy NATO, trying to protect it from us. Russia's foreign minister was saying last week that it's unacceptable for the West to claim Russia and China threaten Greenland, while Trump literally threatens to take it. I mean, they're just having a blast over this. They can't hold themselves. Kirill Dmitriev of Russia writes, collapse of the transatlantic union. Finally, something actually worth discussing at Davos. Davos is starting, I think, tomorrow. They're thrilled. They cannot imagine how this has been given to them on a silver platter, gold platter. Well, silver's pretty high these days, too. Silver and gold platter, 2 platters. Basically, NATO shattered. They crush Ukraine. I mean, even Nigel Farage is mad at Trump. Even Nigel Farage. I mean, it's that bad. Farage saying, I will be having some words with the American administration. What Trump has said is wrong. It's very hurtful to us. We have stood by America for years. This is not how friends treat each other. We will not be bullied into silence on Greenland. Farage, whoa. Anyway, this is where we are. It is bizarre. It is weird. It is crazy. By the way, Davos is starting. Trump is on the way to Davos. Trump, a huge American entourage, is on the way to Davos. Davos is the World Economic Forum. It's that place where, Klaus, who's been fired from Davos for sexual harassment, where the elites of the world conspire to take it over. Well, this year it's going to be dominated by Trump administration people. I wonder if the anti-elites in MAGA are a little upset that Trump is going to Davos. You would think they would say, don't go to Davos. Davos is where the devil lives. That's not good. Anyway, all these leaders are going to be in Davos. It's going to be interesting. The interaction between them will be kind of cool. Now, supposedly, here's another report that I haven't been able to verify from anywhere else, but this is a report that says, it's according to Sky News, it says that on Sunday, Trump actually had a phone call with Keir Starmer, about Greenland, in which Trump admitted that he might have had inaccurate information about the motives for deploying a European military contingent to Greenland. The U.S. president's stated position could become the basis for de-escalating the tensions surrounding Greenland. One of the main reasons for Trump's threats of tariffs related to Greenland was the deployment of a small number, as I said, one guy from the Netherlands, of military personnel on the island at the end of last week. Keir Starmer tried to convince Trump that these military movements serve to strengthen U.S. security interests and are not actions directed against America. So that, according to Sky News. Who knows? I mean, again, Trump is driven by whoever whispered in his ear last. On the other hand, the Germans are getting tougher, right? The Germans are saying, this is Prime Minister of Germany, the American government knows that we can also take reciprocal steps on our side. I do not want that But if necessary, we will certainly defend our European interests and also our German national interests. The economy of the United States is not working as well as the American government expected a year ago. In my assessment, this is somewhat related to the tariff policy as well. We know that Trump often threatens with tariffs, sometimes imposes them, but just as often engages in negotiations, which usually forces him to back down from these decisions. Trump won't like that. The United States once had more than 30,000 troops stationed in Greenland, told you. Today, there are fewer than 200 there. So it is clear that the threat assessment from the United States itself is not as dramatic as it is currently portrayed, although the security situation may still worsen. So there you have it from the Prime Minister of Germany. All right. So let's go from the, I don't know, from the crazy to the insane. Is there any different from the vicious to the nutty to the, I don't know. Anyway, let's talk about this board of peace. Board of peace. So if you remember, as part of the Gaza ceasefire deal, there were supposed to be 3 stages to the Gaza, ultimately, peace program. And stage 2 included a establishment of some kind of technocratic government that would replace Hamas in actually governing the territory, the territory of Gaza. In addition to that, there was supposed to be something called the Gaza Executive Board. And then on top of that, there would be a founding executive board or the executive board. But on top of all of it would be a board of peace, a board of peace. This would be supposedly an international organization chaired by Trump, he said at the time, and would run Gaza, right? Run Gaza. And then it would delegate to the founding executive board, a smaller appointed group under the Board of Peace that would handle operations and implementations. Below that would be the Gaza Executive Board, which would run things on the ground. And below that would be a government of technocrats, which has already been named, 15 technocrats at the bottom. Now, all of this is, of course, contingent. The goal of this Board of Peace is, first of all, to dismantle and to disarm Hamas, and then to start the process of rebuilding Gaza. That is its purpose. Anyway, it turns out, as of on Friday, Trump finally sent out invitations to people to join the Board of Peace. And it turned out that it has very little to do with Gaza. It is supposed to be a board of leaders that basically dabbles in whatever crises exist out there in the world. This Board of Peace has a chairman for life. His name is, of course, Donald Trump, who stays chairman of this Board of Peace even after leaving office as president of the United States, and would have the right to name his successor. Donald Trump, as part of this Board of Peace, would also have complete veto power on all decisions. Now, invited to join the Board of Peace were countries like Canada, France, Britain, and Saudi Arabia, supposedly allies of the United States, although I don't know for how long. Okay, and there was some discussion about this really replaces the Security Council of the United States, just this time with Trump running everything and running it for life and running it with veto power. And maybe if you only include the good countries, this is a good improvement. But then it turned out that Trump also sent invitations to be on the Board of Peace to, who do you think? Well, he sent it to Putin and to the dictator of Belarus. So Putin's going to be on a Board of Peace, the guy who started the war in Ukraine. Now, to be a permanent member on the Board of Peace, to be on the Board of Peace forever, I guess, you have to pony up $1 billion. And then you become a permanent member on the Board of Peace. And you get to be involved in all kinds of global conflicts, which will be determined by Donald Trump. In addition to these countries, Turkey and Qatar are invited. Israel was not. Israel was not, even though it involves Gaza. And the idea is this is a new international body that would supervise the rebuilding of Gaza, but also engage in any other stuff. Again, Trump, there for life. Only two people so far have accepted. Jordan was invited, as I said, Britain. The two people that have accepted are Milei from Argentina and Viktor Orban from Hungary. I hate to see the company that Milei keeps, but what can you do? Now, the founding executive board, which is now being set, will include Marco Rubio, Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff, who is now blamed for the fact that Trump did not act against Iran, Tony Blair, Mark Rowan, who I know, the private equity executive, Ajay Banja from the World Bank president, and Robert Gabriel, the U.S. National Security Advisor. And then the Gaza Executive Board, responsible for Gaza and working directly with the technocratic National Committee, the kind of government there, and it's going to handle day-to-day administration. The Gaza Executive Board will include Blair, Kushner, and Witkoff, but also include representatives from Turkey, Qatar, Egypt, and UAE, and supposedly, I think, one Israeli businessman. Now, Israel is flipping out over this and basically saying, we will absolutely not accept a role for Turkey and Qatar in this governing board of Gaza. They are our enemies, and we will not give them a position. They are at the forefront of the Muslim Brotherhood, and we will not give them a position on this. UAE is fine. Turkey, Qatar are not fine. They're not acceptable. So this has become a big contentious issue between Israel and the United States. According to the charter of the organization, the Board of Peace is an international organization that seeks to promote stability, restore dependable and lawful governance, and secure enduring peace in areas affected or threatened by conflict. The charter does not mention Gaza. Dual peace requires pragmatic judgment, common sense solutions, and the courage to depart from approaches and institutions that have often failed. Countries that join the board will serve a limited 3-year term unless they contribute over $1 billion within the first year of its operation. The money, by the way, to be managed and controlled by, guess who? Donald Trump. Saudi Arabia, which has been invited, has said the kingdom has received the invitation to join the Board of Peace from the U.S. administration and is being reviewed as per our internal processes. We are supportive of President Trump's efforts to resolve the conflict and bring lasting peace to Gaza and the region. It's the voting on this Board of Peace. All decisions will be made by a majority of member states, present and voting, subject to the approval of the chairman, who may also cast a vote in his capacity as chairman in the event of a tie. But he can also veto because he has to approve the decisions. It also provides the chairman with exclusive authority to create, modify, or dissolve subsidiary entities as necessary or appropriate to fulfill the board's peace mission, such as the executive committees that we talked about. So basically, he gives Trump all the power in the world. But the whole idea is stupid. Anyway, the board of peace. The board of peace. Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump running the world in the name of peace, nonetheless. All right, let's see. What did I want to... Yeah, Lukashenko has been invited. He's another one of those big advocate for peace. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Israel, right? And to what extent Israel is willing to play along with this stuff. I mean, this phase 2 of the Gaza deal is really a joke. According to some reports, Netanyahu has said, "I want to make it clear, there will be no Turkish or Qatari soldiers in Gaza. We're currently in a dispute with the United States over the makeup of the advisory council or executive board for Gaza." I mean, imagine if Biden had suggested that Turkey and Qatar have authority over Gaza. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. You just cannot make this stuff up. All right. Next. In the... why should I debate you, Asaf? I'm not going to debate you. I mean, sorry, but I don't debate nobody's. I have to have a self-interest in the debate. And the self-interest is that you can bring people, that people show up to see you. That's the value to me, is larger exposure. I can have fun in lots of different ways. Asaf is suggesting I debate him because he says it will be fun. I can think of many, many more things that would be fun than that. All right. The right would go ballistic if Biden had proposed any of this stuff, and if he did any of this stuff. I mean, at this point, I think Peter Schiff had it right. Peter Schiff posted on Twitter, he said, the one thing that Trump has achieved in his first year as president is, oh God, I wish I had the tweet. Basically, is to show that it was possible to be worse than Biden. Yep. And yes, I think it would be worse than Biden. Does Yaron read Twitter chat? I mean, depends. I read Twitter. I don't know what Twitter chat is. All right, let's see. So, staying in the Middle East. Today, we're Middle East heavy. Staying in the Middle East. Okay, we've talked about Syria, but let me give you some background on Syria. So Syria is a significant strategic country in the Middle East. It sits between Turkey and Israel, Turkey and Jordan, Turkey and Lebanon, and it sits between Lebanon, Israel, and Iraq, and Iraq on the other side. It is why Iran wanted to be in Syria, why the Russians had a significant base in Syria. And of course, the Assad regime that ruled Syria for a very long time was overthrown by Ahmad al-Shara, the former ISIS commander who overran the Assad regime, took Damascus, established herself as president, i.e. dictator of Syria, and announced to the world that while he was an Islamist, an Islamist, he was no longer affiliated with ISIS and now was committed to peace and wanted a peaceful Syria, a Syria integrated into the Middle East and peaceful. And immediately, the Saudis came and hugged him and showered him with compliments and money. And the Europeans came with, I think, $5.8 billion, as if Europe has extra money to spend on Syria. I guess the main reason the Europeans wanted to give money to Syria was with the hope that Syria would become a normal country and all the Syrians in Europe would go back to Syria. And then Donald Trump came and said, whoa, this guy's cool. I like this guy. And he brought him to the White House and he celebrated him and they had a good conversation. And the United States is financially assisting. Now, Syria is still the base for ISIS, mostly in its eastern part, the part closer to Iraq. ISIS was defeated through a combination of efforts, the Russians bombing them with no regard to anything, really, Trump getting tough with them in his first term, and the Kurdish SDF, the Syrian Democratic Forces, which are mainly Kurdish forces, basically fighting ISIS and ultimately defeating them and capturing thousands of them and holding them in prison camps, which the Syrian Democratic Forces managed and held. The Syrian Democratic Forces, as a Kurdish force, was pushing the new government in Damascus to create a federation, a federal type of government, where the Kurds would be given some autonomy in the northeast of the country. On the other hand, the Syrian president made it clear that he was not interested in a federation. There would be one Syria, and that he intended to occupy all of the land that was Syria, and he intended to integrate the soldiers from the Syrian Democratic Forces into the Syrian army. You know, the ones that were still alive after he massacred the ones he didn't like, raped their women, stole their kids. The rest could fight generally in the Syrian army. Anyway, there's been back and forth, and there's been fighting going on in the north and the northeast of Syria between the Kurds and the regular Syrian army. And Syrian army's been gaining ground on the Kurds, in particular, given that they get help from the Turks. Turkey has allowed Islamists to cross the border from Turkey into northern Syria and to fight on the side of the Syrian army in opposition to the Kurdish. The Kurds had established kind of a autonomous region with democracy and women, rights for women and no hijab and no this. And of course, the Syrian government is an Islamist government, and the Turkish government is a government that is super supportive of Islamism. The Kurdish stood in their way. Anyway, fighting continued. The Syrian army made significant ground recently. And then the United States sent its emissary, this guy Barak, who is Lebanese and from the Middle East, anyway, to negotiate a deal. And this weekend, we got a deal. We got a ceasefire, a peace deal between the Syrian military and the Syrian Democratic Forces. Basically, this deal is a deal of surrender by the Syrian Democratic Forces, completely supported, encouraged, promoted by Trump. In other words, Trump has completely turned his back on the one force in the Middle East that has been fighting ISIS on our side, helping us. It involves an immediate ceasefire on all fronts, and the withdrawal of all military formations affiliated with the Syrian Democratic Forces to areas east of the Euphrates, close to the Iraqi border. Second, handing over the governance of the areas in northern Syria immediately to Syrian government. Now, this, by the way, includes many of the prisons in which ISIS commanders, ISIS fighters were being held. Thousands of them. We'll talk about what happened once they were handed over in a minute. You know, integrating all the civil institutions, a Syrian government taking over all the border crossings and oil and gas fields in the region. This is the one region in Syria that has some oil and gas. Integrating all military and security elements of the SDF into the structure of the Syrian military, not as independent units, but as individuals. Basically a complete surrender of the SDF and its retreat from all its strongholds and all its cities and all its political places. In other words, a complete capitulation. This is exactly what Turkey wants, because Turkey has, of course, been in conflict with the Kurds for a very long time. Turkey has achieved what it wanted, was the capitulation of the Kurds, and Syria now controls. Syrian forces over the weekend, fighting continued after the ceasefire deal was, Syrian forces entered into the towns and places. Kurdish women, who are about 40% of the entire fighting force of the Kurdish forces, they erected a big sculpture of a woman fighter as a symbol of women's freedom in Raqqa, a city in the north. That statue was immediately dragged down and destroyed, right? Destroyed. God forbid. The women now, I don't know what they're going to do, but many of them will become, it would be my guess, sex slaves to the new, Assad, new Syrian army, and to the ISIS elements. One of the first things the Syrian army did in northern Syria was release all the ISIS. Remember, the president of Syria was a former ISIS fighter. So thousands of ISIS fighters who, if you remember, in the mid-2010s, were going to Europe and committing terrorist attacks. Thousands of these ISIS fighters have now been released from their prisons. This all at the urging of the United States. Trump basically told them that he was pivoting away from them towards the Syrian Arab army. This ambassador Barak was urged the Kurds to make deep compromises, and the Syrian government got everything it wanted with the help of the United States and the Europeans. Turkey is the winner here. Turkey now basically has a huge influence on Syria, has troops inside Syria on the Syrian side of the border with Turkey. And now Israel faces on its northeastern border an Islamist regime, manned by ISIS fanatics who make, I think, Hamas seem moderate, right? I mean, these are people who, committed September 7th-like atrocities on a daily basis in Iraq and Syria when they had control over their territories. Now, Israel has created a buffer zone in its northeastern region, which includes the Druze minority. The Jews have not yet surrendered to the Syrian army, and Israel is, at least for now, protecting them as a buffer between it and Damascus. But the United States could turn on Israel like that, and force them to basically abandon the Jews. The U.S. is a backstabbing country under Trump. Under Trump, the U.S. stabs its allies in the back. It stabs Europe It stabs the demonstrators in Iran, and it stabs the Kurds. It is a backstabbing regime that does not care one iota for its allies. And of course, think about this in the context of future national security. If we have no allies because we stabbed them all in the back, American soldiers died in Syria fighting alongside the Kurds to put ISIS terrorists in prison. This United States government, Donald J. Trump, has just basically released them all. I don't know for how long U.S. troops will stay in Syria. There's still a few U.S. troops in Syria. My guess is they will leave. I hope they leave because they're in danger now. But there's video now of escaped ISIS elements from their prisons and camps. We're talking about thousands of them. One of these prisons holds 5,000 ISIS members. And Trump just handed them their freedom. Handed them their freedom. I mean, this is from the Kurds. I really want to say to the people who are watching right now, the world asked the Kurds to fight the most brutal terrorists there are in the world, ISIS. They fought bravely. And we have over 15 to 20,000 martyrs and 50,000 wounded. And then the world asked us to be ruled by the same terrorists. That's what's happening now. It's exactly the same as to ask the Jews, now you shall be ruled by Hamas. And when you see us being slaughtered, our girls being raped, killed, and sold as sex slaves, please don't think we didn't fight, because we did. But you, me adding this, betrayed us. You betrayed us. So, yeah, America, the wonderful ally again. Ambassador Tom Barak is out there celebrating this wonderful ceasefire deal that has freed thousands of ISIS terrorists. Again, Turkey is the winner here. Turkey is ultimately a hostile force. It is a member of NATO, and yet it conspires against the United States, against Israel, and against American interests in the Middle East. And it has ambitions to become a major force in the Middle East. And it is teaming up with Saudis to do exactly that. Even the Saudis, the more I see, the more they see how America behaves, the more they're turning away from America towards trying to establish kind of an Islamic NATO. Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Turkey. Saudi Arabia has the money, Pakistan has the nukes, and Turkey has the military forces. That is a powerful combination. And that is not what was expected after the collapse of Hezbollah and the failure of Assad. It was not expected that we would create an even worse alliance. And yeah, as Mario says, maybe Egypt. Yeah, I think Egypt would join that alliance. All right, it's depressing. Sorry, but it's just frigging depressing. All right, let's do a few of these topics quickly, and then we'll go to your questions. We are way behind on our targets. We're about $80 short of our first hour target, and yet we are into our second hour already. So let's get that first hour done. $80 to get our first hour target, and so you can do a sticker. You can ask a question. I'll answer questions in a little while. It's a great way to shape the show, and it's a great way to get me to talk about what you want me to talk about. Whatever you want me to talk about, just ask a question, and that way I'll comment on it. All right, one of the consequences of the Trump administration's policies, tariffs and Greenland, and just Trump's insanity. Insanity is too nice of a word, I guess, but Trump's immorality isn't basically incentivizing our allies to not consider themselves our allies anymore and really seek out partnerships elsewhere in the world. And clearly, Canada last week exhibited what that looks like. Canadian Prime Minister Carney visited China last week and met with Xi. And from all evidence, seems like they had a great meeting. They both called their agreement a new strategic partnership. Carney has committed Canada to reducing tariffs on electric cars, which were matching the United States at 100%, reducing those dramatically to allow the importation of Chinese electric cars into Canada. China, on the other hand, is reducing tariffs significantly on certain agricultural products that Canada produces. I think you can also think of Canada supplying China with oil. There was talk of another pipeline. I don't know if there's already a pipeline to the Pacific coast to load up ships to take them west to China. As the United States become less a reliable trading partner. Xi is really trying to present himself as a stabilizing global force, as the United States is clearly a destabilizing force. Xi, China of all people, is trying to present themselves as we're pro-free trade, we're pro-stability, we'll do what we say we do. We're not going to stab people in the backs. You know, we're just stable. We're just there. Canada views the world as now having a new world order, and the United States is not necessarily on Canada's side in this new world order. And given how Trump has treated Canada, why should they think that? By the way, Trump freaked out when he heard about these low tariffs on Chinese cars. It just made him nuts. So we're going to have to do something about it. He's going to raise tariffs again on Canada. Who knows what he's going to do? Yeah, I mean, Washington, Trump is not going to be happy with this. They're going to review trade with Canada. They're going to review the USMCA, which is the United States, Mexico, Canada Trade Pact. And it wouldn't be surprising if they squeeze Canada even further in the future, given the closer relationship. Of course, this goes far beyond Chinese EVs. Canada's had a very, very strained relationship with China. It arrested WWII's, the daughter of WWII's founder. She was the CFO of WWII. And they've had a very strained relationship, but part of this agreement involves Chinese increased investment in Canada, particularly around auto production. This is, by the way, not good for American auto companies who sell a lot of cars in Canada and produce a lot of cars in Canada. Chinese EVs are high quality, very low cost, and America makes nothing that really can compete with Chinese EVs right now. If you want EVs, now it's not clear the Canadians want EVs, but if you want EVs, there's nothing America produces that can compete with it. Canadian farmers will be able to sell their canola seed. American farmers are still not being able to sell any of the pork bellies to China. Remember when Trump said he's got a deal and the Chinese will buy a ton of pork bellies? Nada. Nothing's happened. 5 months since that, and not a single pork belly has moved from the United States to China. It's just the Chinese. Xi is a master, just like Putin. Putin and Xi are just masters at manipulating Trump. Canada also said today that it would, as I said before, I think, it would consider American taking over Greenland as an attack on NATO and would ride to Greenland's defense for whatever that's worth. All right. On the in the category of there's nutty Trump, but then there's really nutty Trump. And by the way, right, none of this is indication of TDS. You know, like the Greenland thing, I'm not making anything up. All this is just Trump. On this board of peace, I'm not making it up. This is just Trump. You can have no TD, whatever. You can just read the news straight with no intonation and no point of view. And this is just what falls out. On him is stabbing in the back the Kurds. Doesn't quite TDS to see that. I don't know what you think about this one. So this is a post by Donald Trump. When was this? 2 days ago, Saturday. He says the Army-Navy game, this is football, for those of you who don't know, is one of the greatest American traditions. Unmatched patriotism, courage, and honor. This incredible tradition is now at risk of being pushed aside by more college playoff games and big TV money. Not anymore, all caps. Under my administration, the second Saturday in December belongs to Army-Navy, and only Army-Navy. I will soon sign a historic executive order securing an exclusive 4-hour broadcast window, so this national event stands above commercial postseason games. No other game or team can violate this time slot. On the field, they are rivals, but on the battlefield, they are America's unstoppable patriots, defending our country with tremendous strength and heart. We must protect the tradition and the players who protect us. Please let this serve as notice to all TV networks, stations, and outlets. God bless America, and God bless our great Army-Navy game. President Donald J. Trump. I mean, this is not satire. I didn't make this up. This is not a consequence of whatever. This is just a post he made. So in other words, it's now in the United States going to be illegal to play football when the government says it's playing football. You have to watch the great patriotic government football game. It's now mandatory. I mean, this is a clear violation of the First Amendment. A clear violation of the First Amendment. Even just the threat of it, even if he never implements it, is a violation. I mean, if you're pro-freedom in any respect, and if you value the First Amendment, you cannot defend this. And again, to all those people who think Trump is the greatest president ever, how do you defend this? He's basically telling TV stations what they're allowed to show and what they're not allowed to show, all in the name of nationalistic, patriotic glory. It sounds like, not me, it's not TDS, it just sounds like, nationalistic, fascist BS. I get to decide what football you can watch. Only patriotic games on this day. Only the games I approve of on this day. I mean, it's nuts. All right, finally, ICE. The craziness in Minnesota continues. It is. I want to remind everybody that Minnesota has very few illegals in comparison to other states around the country. Most of the Somalis in Minnesota and almost all the Somalis committing fraud in Minnesota are actually legally in Minnesota. You might not like it, but they are. They're legal. So why is ICE there? It's just Waltz, leftists, Somali fraud, race, blacks. It just demands, let's go in there. And it really is insane. More videos come out, more testimonies come out about the shooting. It's also now clear that Officer Jonathan Ross was not injured. If the car scraped him, it barely touched him. He was clearly not injured. He didn't go to the hospital, as some people claimed. ICE indeed blocked the doctor from starting CPR when she was still alive after the shooting. So all of it just gets, the more information gets released, the worse it is for ICE. And yet, while the FBI opened a probe on Minneapolis shooting originally, it doesn't exist now. The Justice Department is not investigating. There's no investigation of this murder. They're not interested in the truth. They don't care. These officers have full immunity. In other words, you can shoot a woman in her car from almost point blank range because, I don't know, because you are a coward who feels threatened, even though you scooted away and got away, and you will suffer no consequences. No consequences. The Trump administration is pushing for an investigation of Renee Goods, the victim's partner, but not of the officer who shot him. There's no investigation planned, even though the FBI started one. It was shut down. Now, also with regard to Minnesota, I got an email from a friend who lives in Wilmar, or she actually lives, her and her husband live outside of Wilmar, Minnesota. Wilmar, I told you last time. Wilmar is basically, 2.5 hours due west of Minneapolis. You just drive straight. I forget the name of the highway. Wilmar has a population of about 20,000 people. It's not a large metro area. It's a small rural Minnesota town. It has some Somalis who have settled there and live there. Some percentage of the population is from Somalia. Last week, starting on Wednesday, ICE showed up in Wilmar, Minnesota. Not just in Minneapolis, but in Wilmar. On Monday, this is on the 16th. On the 12th, Monday the 12th. From 6 to 8 agents were out Monday afternoon. This I'm reading from a news story in the local, KARE 11 news, right? Local news. From 6 to 8 agents were on Monday afternoon in downtown Wilmar, arresting and dragging a 19-year-old Somali woman to an unmarked vehicle. You can find the video of this on Instagram. They give the link. The Somali woman is a 19-year-old, still in high school, and is here on Form I-94. Her family did apply for green card status, which they also got a paper in the mail saying that they did their paperwork and they are in the process. As of Tuesday morning, the ICE website showed the woman as being booked into the agency system, but the location has not yet been listed. The family has not received a phone call. They don't know where she is. The young woman's mother told the cultural liaison at the Wilmar Public Schools that the federal agents were following her daughter from a parking lot to her home and then to drop her mom off at work. They then followed her into downtown while she was picking up food for her family. She did put the window down just to ask them what they wanted, and then the agent reached in and took her out of the car. Family and friends of the 19-year-old woman, who is still in high school, state they did not even know she was arrested. If not for a bystander, had not captured the video of her arrest. So nothing from ICE, God forbid you let the, At the same time, or the same period, agents arrested a man doing shift change at Jenny Oturkey store processing plant in Wilmar Avenue Southwest, according to witnesses interviewed. It goes on. Wilmar parents continue to keep their kids home from school due to this week's ICE activity in town. Wilmar School's superintendent Dr. Bill Adams says 1,214 kids were absent on Tuesday, 945 on Wednesday. At Tuesday's anti-ICE protest in downtown Wilmar, the Somali woman said parents are afraid of ICE. Adams sent a message to district parents Tuesday saying ICE agents cannot enter district schools without a warrant, and if they have one, they won't be allowed to take anyone without parent being present. Adams said they remain committed to keeping schools a safe place, as if ICE cares about what the school superintendent thinks about any of this, right? A number of businesses are now closed in Wilmar, right? Because their workers have been arrested. Generally, downtown Wilmar is quiet. The businesses there have no business because ICE is in the streets, and therefore nobody wants to be out there and be harassed by them. Republican State Representative Dave Baker said he normally supports ICE's efforts as they look for criminals. He says, I want all these folks gone. He means the criminals. I think everyone supports that. But we can't get answers. We can't get answers from anybody about why they're taking a high school student. Baker said his community is on fire right now, with people scared to bring their children to school or go out and spend their money at business. About 17% of Walmart population is foreign-born, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. He says, one of the stories, which is just ridiculous, 4 ICE agents went and ate lunch at a family-owned Mexican restaurant in Wilmar. It says here yesterday, so this is on Thursday. This was on Thursday last week. They ate lunch, they paid, they left, and then 4 hours later, they came back and arrested 3 members of the restaurant staff. The restaurant has since closed. It's not open for business. So they ate lunch. I wonder if they tipped. This is from, this is from Wilmar Radio. The effects of ICE in the local area continue to be felt. 2 popular Wilmar restaurants remain closed. The Star Tribune says ICE agents ate at the restaurant and then went over and arrested the people who worked there. While no statements have been made directly tying the closure to the presence of ICE, many restaurants have closed in Minnesota with the elevated ICE operation. A group of students walked out of class about 15 minutes at Wilmar High School yesterday afternoon. Many held signs asking ICE to get out of town. On Monday afternoon, that's a 19-year-old was taken, right? It continues. This is having a significant impact on the town. So Kathy, you send me this, is saying this is having a significant impact on Lauren and myself. Lauren's her husband. The longtime and very generous supporters of the Ayn Rand Institute. I visited Wilmar because Lauren used to own a factory, a business out there, a factory out there, and he invited me to come and speak to his executives years ago. I think I've been in Wilmar twice. These are amazing people. It's not exactly what you would consider, a highly liberal town. Fairly conservative people out there in rural Minnesota, and yet these people are pissed off. She says we can hardly focus on anything else. I wonder if ICE agents will be permanently stationed in Wilmar. She says this is just 1 week of news articles about ICE raids in our normally quiet little town in rural Minnesota, USA. This is not just in metro areas. It's not just in blue areas. It's hurting people everywhere with no upside, no benefit, no value created, nothing. You've taken 3, people who worked at a Mexican restaurant. Maybe they're here illegally. Who cares? They're not crooks. They're not criminals. By the way, illegally not having papers and working in the United States is not a criminal act. It's not criminal law. The disrupting lives of people, the treating human beings in the ugliest of fashion, with real brutality. They have no respect for human life, as we saw with the shooting. No respect for human life. I mean, the arrogance and the police state tactics of these goons is just pathetic. And I know every time I say this, by the way, I lose a bunch of subscribers. I mean, I think more than even when I attacked Trump during the elections. In the last few days, I've lost, I mean, I lost net about 20. So people add, but then net on a particular day, I lost 20 subscribers. That's a lot. And that's purely because of my comments on ICE. But I'm glad. Good riddance. And I'm going to keep saying it, because if we don't stand up to them, if we don't talk about it, if we just acquiesce, then that tells the people in power that they can get away with it. And things will only get worse. Only get worse. Significantly worse. Now they're going after illegals. Next, they go after any one of us for anything. Remember, it's not a criminal act, so we all commit some misdemeanors. I mean, the law is written in such a way that it's hard not to, right? All right. Thank you, guys, and thank you, Kathy, for sending me those clips from Walmart. And so let's turn now to a super chat. We're way behind on our goals today, guys. We're well into the second hour, probably going to the third hour, given the number of questions we have, but they're all like $2 and $5 questions. So if you want to ask a question moving forward, I encourage you to do $20 or $50, $100, so we can chip away at these goals and get to some reasonable compensation for the show. Let me remind you of our sponsors. The Ayn Rand Institute is promoting their conference in Porto, Portugal. Beautiful place. Porto is a beautiful place. If you're in Europe, come on over. Ryanair has cheap flights. And the hotel we're staying at is not expensive, and there are probably cheaper hotels nearby. So come on over, spend the weekend with us. It's going to be a lot of fun. These conferences are always a lot of fun. We're going to have a nice group of people there. If you're under 34, you can apply for a scholarship. So please consider coming and applying for a scholarship. You can find out about registration and everything else. I will be there. I will be speaking there. So it'd be great to hang out with you guys. So to register and to find out about scholarships and everything else, you can go to aynrand.org, aynrand.org/start here, aynrand.org/start here. And you guys who are in Israel, who are listening to the show, you should come too. There's always a good Israeli contingency at these conferences. Now, I know now the Ayn Rand Institute is doing Ayn Rand conferences in Israel every year. It's difficult to get you to come to Europe, but Porto is such a cool city. You should come. Michael Williams, defenders of capitalism.com, defendersofcapitalism.com. Michael's a friend, a colleague. We work together on defendersofcapitalism.com. Check out the website. And great work for leadership program in the Rockies and really teaching capitalism the way it's supposed to be taught. HendershotWealth.com/YBS, HendershotWealth.com/YBS. Hendershot Wealth has products. Hendershot, by the way, with 2 T's, has products that help with deferring or eliminating your capital gains tax liability. If you have a huge payoff, a big capital gains event coming up, selling a business, selling stock in NVIDIA that you bought at zero and is now worth a fortune, you might want to check them out. Check them out, HendershotWealth.com/YBS. Check out the video I did with Robert Hendershot on my channel on YouTube under the sponsors playlist, and see if you think this is a product that would be valuable for you. And finally, Alex Epstein, the world authority on all things energy. Check out his Substack, alexepstein.substack.com, alexepstein.substack.com. Alex is also now running a lobby organization, lobbying for freedom in energy, lobbying Congress for really economic liberty, economic freedom. So incredibly valuable to read Alex and to follow what he does. alexepstein.substack.com. Okay, you should become a monthly supporter of the Yaron Brook Show. You should just get on a regular schedule. You can do that on patreon.com. Just put in Yaron Brook Show and become a monthly supporter. I know many of you have. We are, I think, one or two people short of our monthly goal. So we're doing well for the month, but we need more. And I've got ambitious goals for the show, for funding, so we can really take some of the marketing efforts that we do here to the next level. I will have more information later this week about the OPA study group, which I hope to launch in February. So we will have more information about that soon. I am planning an event in London on February 28th, I think it is. It's a Saturday, so stay tuned for information about that if you're in the UK. An event in London, February 28th, like at one of these seminars, 4 hours, topic to be determined, and more information coming to you. What else? Go to Patreon, become a supporter, and don't forget, right here, right now, if you're on YouTube, or if you're not on YouTube, come to YouTube and contribute. You could do so with a sticker, $2 all the way to $500, or with a question, $2 all the way to $500, although $20 and above are appreciated right now because it's so late. And what else did I want to say? All good. All right, let's jump in with some of our questions. Yeah, those of you who are watching later or listening via podcast, support the show through Patreon. Trade with me. Value for value. I want to say that. All right. Alex is not close to Trump, and he's not close to MAGA. He is trying to influence the better elements within the Republican Party to do better things than they would do without him, his influence. That's how I read it. All right, let me just thank the sticker people. John, thank you. And Apollo, thank you. Apollo Zeus. And who else do we have? Who else? Yes, I see Gail, thank you. And that might be it for stickers. We're short on stickers, guys. Jump in with stickers, please. All right, that is it. All right, so come on over with your stickers and questions and everything else, and let's get the numbers up. Let's make this number reflect the value that you get from the show. All right, I think it's all $20, so let's jump in with the $20 questions. This is Liam. Is the Trump administration starting to get worried the population is turning against them? Or they're such delusional megalomaniacs, they're even more confident and bold with their random acts of fascism? I think they are worried the population is turning against them, although I think people like Miller don't really care, and they are bold. Somebody gave the example of, when Roe versus Wade was overturned, the American population was against Republicans, and they took a beating in the next election, right? But any of the pro-life Republicans regret all the fighting that led to the reversal of Roe versus Wade? No, they don't. They'll take the electoral loss because they got it. Miller's perspective, I think, is if we can kick out all the illegal immigrants and some legal ones that we don't like, and if we can take Alaska, could we take Greenland, and we can whip into shape the world or however they think, or have tariffs or whatever. Even if we lose an election, it'll still be worth it because long term, these things will survive and reshape America. I think he's wrong, but they're doing it in spite of the fact that it's unpopular. I mean, poll after poll after poll show it's unpopular. And yet they're doubling up on it because they don't know how to admit failure and walk it back. Walk it back. Objective AI, thank you for the support. I appreciate that. Wyatt, what did Rand mean by, quote, "you're letting this greatest of countries be devoured by any scum from any corner of the earth while you concede that it is selfish to live for your country and your moral duty is to..." What? Where is this quote? Can you give me a citation? Give me a citation of where this is, right? Wyatt, wherever you are. And by the way, given that Ayn Rand would consider scum, she would consider anybody with bad ideas, no matter where they came from, including, or maybe primarily, from Europe. But I'm interested in where that quote actually comes from. Val. And by the way, it's, she is... Val, finished E is UF. I'm not sure what E is in UF means. Inspiring. Loved Woz's childhood memory of his dad, a creator, someone crafting good. Shocked by the antitrust laws. Microsoft first, but then used them on Google. Great lessons. Inequality ain't poverty. What is E of UF? Is UF? Where is he? Is he here? Is Val here to tell me which book he's referring to? It sounds like a book. Or am I just flaking because it's obvious what it is? The book, which book? Equal is Unfair. Oh, my book. Equal is Unfair. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's a good book. It's a good book. And I'm hoping antitrust laws are as bad as written in the book. They're actually worse. I've learned even more about antitrust since then, and they're even worse. So yeah, I'm glad you liked it. Everybody should read it. I hope everybody reads it. All right, let's see. Okay, 20 Australian dollars. We'll take that. In regard to the toppling of authoritarian regimes, would it be correct to say sovereignty is not determined by borders? It is determined by the degree to which individual rights are protected within those borders. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's right. I'd like why it says it's from Atlas Shrugged, I'd like the passage. I want to get the full context of what she's saying so I could comment on it. I don't remember that line. And by the way, what I think is going on, because in Atlas Shrugged, there's no immigration, so she's not talking about immigration. What is happening in Atlas Shrugged is the United States is funding the rest of the world, right? The United States is being devoured by the scum from any corner of the earth because it's sending money to every corner of the earth. This is the money that Ragnar is stealing, right? So what she's meaning here is not immigration. Ayn Rand was very pro-immigration, and while you can see that it's selfish to live for your country, yes, you can see that, but they think that selfishness is bad, and therefore they believe their moral duty is to live for the globe, and therefore they are subsidizing the globe. They're funding the globe. Well, just like today, to some extent, Our foreign aid is not quite as robust as it is in Atlas Shrugged, and we're not as poor as we are in Atlas Shrugged. But yeah, our foreign aid should be zero. It should be focused on those countries that provide us with a clear value. It should be only value. But the reality is that we spend, what, $50 billion on foreign aid? Maybe it's more, $60 billion on foreign aid. Even if you get that $60 billion, that's nothing. The real problem in America today is not that we are sending money overseas. The real problem of America today is that we're taxing young people and giving the money to rich people, to old people who often are rich. The biggest scam in the world right now is the fact that the United States has a massive redistribution program from young to old. That's what's bankrupting the country. The global policy is not bankrupting the country. And indeed, the United States global policy has not been fundamentally altruistic, other than in the sense that of not defeating its enemies. She didn't want us in a global alliance with other people's states. How do you know that? How do you know that? Have you got a quote from Ayn Rand where she says we shouldn't be in a global alliance with other people's states? She supported the United States defending its interest. And if that meant being in an alliance with other countries, then that served our interests. She believed in the United States defeating our enemies. She believed in crushing Iran. She believed in crushing Iran. She called them the people's states in Atlas Shrugged. Atlas Shrugged is, I hate to break it to you, fiction. Fiction. It was not a description of the United States as it was. It was a description of the United States as it would become as it got worse. But Atlas Shrugged is not, when she's talking about the people's states, she's not talking about Europe of the time. She's talking about Europe of Atlas Shrugged time. I mean, if this is to suggest somehow that Ayn Rand would support Donald Trump's foreign policy, you're nuts. You're nuts. Ayn Rand would never support Donald Trump's currying favor with Putin. She would never support his brown-nosing Xi. She wouldn't support, annexing Greenland. Europe today is far from the people's state that is described in Atlas Shrugged. I mean, again, you're making stuff up. You don't know what you're talking about. Ayn Rand explicitly said she supported Israel. So, and she also said she supported attacking Iran. So, I don't think she would advocate for a anti-alliance, do what Trump is doing, bullying countries around the world. For what exactly? Now, I've in the past said I'm all in favor of leaving NATO, and you could imagine leaving NATO. You do it properly. You don't do it through confrontation over Greenland. You do it by leaving NATO. You set a plan out 5-10 years out, and you say we're going to move troops out of Europe, and Europe take over responsibility for defending yourselves, and we're going to leave NATO. And I think Ayn Rand would be in favor of that. I'm certainly in favor of that. And at the same time, you would say we're against Russia. We'll help you with arms to fight the Russians. We just don't think you need NATO anymore because you can do it yourselves. Not Trump. Nothing close to Trump. Jamie, a lot of conservatives here unhappy with China deal due to interference in elections, bounties placed on Canadian heads, secret police on our soil, kidnapped citizens. Is this alliance good for Canadian perspective? Well, I mean, it depends what the alliance involved. I think trade is good for the Canadian perspective. I think low tariffs with China is good from the Canadian perspective. I think it's more than that. It's bad. But Canada is facing lots of bad alternatives created by Trump. Trump is the source of that. Trump is the source of that. So, Trump is the one who has Again, stabbed an ally in the back. That's his MO. That's his modus operandi, is to stab allies in the back. He stabbed Canada in the back. You know, there's no reason Canada shouldn't trade with China. And lowering tariffs is what Canada should do generally. And having better trade relations with China is a good thing. So, yeah, if it's more than that, if it's giving them any kind of concessions, given all these other things that you mentioned, that's bad. But trade is a good thing. Canada, I mean, in my view, should just go unilaterally zero tariffs. Shazbat, I suspect that even if loved ICE, I wouldn't love them for very long if they robbed me of my enchiladas. That's probably why the agents didn't arrest anyone during lunchtime. Probably. The enchiladas came first. I think that's absolutely right. No, Trump is completely wrong in Greenland. The United States doesn't need Greenland. There's zero reason for the United States to do Greenland. It's just, it's all got to do wrapped up with Trump's ego. It has nothing to do with national security. Trump is wrong on this. While he was right about the Europeans not paying enough into NATO, he was right in pressuring them to do that, to increase their payments in NATO. Although they were already doing it because of 2014, Russian war with Ukraine that started in 2014. But no, Trump is wrong on the way he's approaching it, and wrong in his desires. He is just a whim-worshipping thug. There's nothing more than that. There's no strategy here. There's no strategic necessity here. CST, whatever. Hi, Dr. Brook. I'm dealing with a very painful breakup that involved betrayal and deception from someone I thought I loved. Now it's time to work on myself, and Yaron's Rules for Life will certainly help. Thanks for all that you do. I'm sorry that you're having to deal with a breakup. It's sad, but if it really did involve betrayal and deception, it had to be done, and you have to move on. And it wasn't good for you, even if you loved them. So you've got to get over it. Work on yourself. I hope Rules for Life helps. Check out Virtue of Selfishness, and yeah, good luck. Good luck getting over it. It's not easy. Not easy. CP Milken says 25th Amendment now. Yes, I mean, if the Republicans had balls, which they don't, so it won't happen, they would put pressure on the cabinet to enforce the 25th Amendment and rule Donald Trump incapacitated, not in a mental position to be able to govern. I think he's just as bad in a sense in terms of his mental state as Biden was. Worse in a sense because he still projects competence even though he's completely not there. In a sense of he's completely emotional. But nobody will do it. And this cabinet, as I told you before the election, this cabinet is just a bunch of yes men. There's no talent on the cabinet, and there's no there's no courage. There's no commitment to the United States of America. The commitment is to Trump. There's no loyalty to America, and there's no loyalty to the Constitution. Nobody cares about the Constitution. And if ICE needs to be filmed and it's a public service, should more objectivists be filming? Or is objectivism more about ideas for others to put into action? No, I mean, if there's ICE in your neighborhood, you should go out and film them. I think filming ICE is important. I think it's an incredible value. But I don't think you should drive to Minnesota in order to do it. There's enough people already doing it in Minnesota. But if they're in your neighborhood, do it. But there's no objectivists. It's too small of a group at this point to have a major impact on something like that. But to the extent that this is an issue that pisses you off, that upsets you, and that you want to get engaged and you want to get active, yeah, go. If ICE is in your city, go to where they are and film them. Be careful. Don't put yourself in physical danger, but do what you can to document what they are doing. Clark, my trouble with Trump isn't that he's Hitler, My problem with Trump is that he's not Hitler. Yes, that's Nick Fuentes. There's a quote from Nick Fuentes. Trump is not Hitler enough. Trump is not fascist enough. Trump is not allowing ICE to be brutal enough. That's Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes wants Trump to be more like Hitler. That's a direct quote, by the way. Direct quote. So for those of you who think Nick Fuentes is not that bad, that's about as bad as it gets. Clark, where anti-Semitism is out of control, society has a death wish. Yeah. And certainly parts of the right now have that. I guess there was a number of influences over the weekend, Nick Fuentes being one of them, with a bunch of other people, including, what's the name, the brothers from Romania, went to a nightclub where this nightclub explicitly advertising that they were going to play Kanye West's anti-Semitic song about Hitler and rap song about Hitler. And so all these anti-Semitic influences went to the nightclub and partied to West's anti-Semitic song. Esev, evidently tomorrow the Supreme Court is set to release more decisions, maybe on tariffs. Do you think the public reaction has played a part in the delay, or is the court really this divided? I don't know. I just don't know what has caused the delay over the tariffs issue. It could be trying to build a larger majority. It could be getting the decisions, writing the decisions in such a way as to garner more support. Because if they're going to tell Donald Trump that he's done something that's unconstitutional, I think the majority wants to be as large as possible. And I wouldn't be surprised if, given the nature of Chief Justice, he is trying to build as big of a coalition, as many people to support the decision as possible. And I think that's probably the nature of the debate. But I think we'll know a lot more about that when the decision is released. Everything else is speculation at this point. James, what happens when true masculinity is demonized? It is replaced with these sorry excuses for alpha males like Trump and Tate, which misuse testosterone. Yes, I think that's right. Of course, the whole idea of what true masculinity is a question which needs to be thought about and really considered. It's not a clear-cut and obvious what true masculinity is. I also think it's a concept that needs rethinking in the modern world. True masculinity today is not the same as true masculinity in the Bronze Age, and it needs to be thought about what it actually means and what it relates to. But yes, when men broadly are demonized, then when men are viewed as toxic by their very nature, then people like Tate and Trump rise up to kind of fill in a void that's created, sadly. And particularly when there's nobody out there advocating for a proper masculinity, a healthy masculinity. Okay, James, having Jason Rheins on to hear his takedown and assessment of Trump so far would be beautiful. Did he ever get back to you? Yeah, I mean, he's going to be on. It's just an issue of when, there's a schedule. I think Greg, we've got Greg coming up. Greg Solimeri is coming up. You can ask him about Trump. He'll give you his assessment of Trump. We've got Tara Smith scheduled. We've got a couple of other people scheduled. So the schedules are, indeed, we got Augustina coming up. So we're going to get a big update from Augustina about Milei. She's been to Argentina. She's really following Milei closely. She was there during the parliamentary elections. So we'll be talking about Milei. We'll also be talking about immigration. She's an immigration expert. So, we've got a bunch of people to talk to in the weeks to come. Next week, I think, is Greg. No, next week is not Greg. Who's next week? One second. Let me see who's next week. Next week is Ben Baer. Next week is Ben Baer, and then I'm gone the following Monday, and then the week after that is Greg, and then 2 weeks after that is Tara. And I'm not sure when we have Augustina, but I know we have Augustina. I guess we're still negotiating with Augustina the date. And Jason's in the pipeline. Liam, was Hitler much more popular than Trump in his early years of power? Well, I think so, but it's hard to tell because I don't think there were any polls in those days. I don't know how reliable the polls were, so I don't know, but I think he was. But I'm not for sure. Remember, when Hitler became premier, he didn't have a majority. He didn't win a majority, so it's hard to tell. Did you see the Finnish action film Sisu Road to Revenge? It showed Russians as bad guys. Went to Finns in World War II, sort of, on the German side. No, Finland was invaded by Russia, and it fought a war against Russia, against the Soviet Union during the war. So they would only be considered on Germany's side because they were fighting against Russia, and Russia was fighting against Germany. But I don't think they were on Germany's side. I think they were just fighting Russia because Russia had invaded them. Hopper Campbell, how do Republicans think they're going to keep the Hispanic vote after what they unleashed on that community? I just don't see how MAGA is sustainable. Who knows? Why did people even vote for him? He told them this is what he would do. He said it. He was going to deport millions of people. And yet people voted for him. So I don't know if these things, how many minds this actually changes. Hopper Campbell, the ICE thugs who killed that woman received over $1 million on GoFundMe. This is the inverted clown world we live in. It really is horrible and demoralizing. Demoralizing. Not your average algorithm. Could you do a show reacting to Goebbels' speeches? No, why would I do that? Comparing his rhetoric to the rhetoric we're hearing today from Stephen Miller and other Trump goons. God, I mean, that would be hard. I mean, I could go read them. I couldn't listen to them. I could go live in German anyway, but I could read them and see if I wanted to do that. I mean, if somebody paid me $1,000, like a show sponsorship, maybe I'd do it. But just like that for fun, I don't know. Real Spark, did you do much marching in the IDF? Does it help? No and no. I don't know what it helps. And no, we didn't do much marching. Marching is, authoritarian regimes do a lot of marching because it's important. The little details are important. Our uniforms were crap. We were pretty disheveled. And, the Israeli army is quite informal as compared to a lot of other armies, and partially what makes it good. And marching is very formal. Canadian News, Mark Carney makes a deal with Qatar. Yeah, I mean, sadly, everybody's making deals with Qatar because they're willing to hand out lots of money. That's pretty disgusting, but it's not surprising. I mean, Trump is their best friend, so why wouldn't the Canadians get in on the act? Okay, Steve-O, hi, Yaron. What do you think of sovereign immunity? Is there a good objective reason to declare government immune from all lawsuits? No. As long as we have a rational legal system where you can only sue people for something that deserves suit, gross negligence or something that exceeds, that is clearly bad, right? Problem is we live in a very litigious society where the courts allow lawsuits that shouldn't be allowed. For things that you shouldn't be allowed to sue over. But no, I don't believe in sovereign immunity and releasing government from all. Again, I would like to see our liability system reformed so that rationality is brought back into lawsuits over liability issues. Steve, do you know all the names of all the different types of syllogisms? No, I don't. Not at all. Steve-O, to whom must one provide holiday and birthday gifts? Should one buy a gift for his boss? Oh, I don't know. I mean, it depends on your relationship. Generally, I'd say probably not. but please don't buy me a gift if I'm your boss. And I never wanted gifts from my employees. I mean, gifts should be genuine. So family members, close family members, and friends. And even then, I mean, I think at a certain age and a certain level of wealth, you should agree not to give gifts. So we, with our friends, basically made the agreement: no gifts on Christmas, no gifts on birthdays. It's just too difficult to figure a good gift out. And most of these people have what they want. It's not like they're going to get something they really need from me that they don't have. So I'm not big on gift giving. I mean, I think it's nice and it's great, and with kids and family, and yeah, all that's amazing. But at a certain age, it just becomes irrelevant. But I certainly don't think you should buy a gift for your boss. I mean, again, unless he expects it. Maybe some bosses expect it. Ask other employees. Don't do it unless it's expected. Steve-O, do you have a judge other than the Supreme Court who you know about and would recommend reading? I'm sure there's someone who thinks differently. Yeah, I just don't remember names. I mean, there's a Supreme Court judge in the state of Arizona, Arizona Supreme Court judge, who used to be at the Institute for Justice and then was at the Goldwater Institute and then became a Supreme Court judge in the state of Arizona, who is influenced by Objectivism and is a really interesting guy. I haven't read his opinions, but they strike me as they would be good. There's some judges in the Court of Appeals that has Texas as part of it that are good on economic issues, property rights issues, terrible on social issues, good on economic issues. But no, I don't really follow individual judges. Real Spock, is Russia-Ukraine invasion similar to Iraq-Kuwait? Yes, except that Iraq took over Kuwait in a day or something. There was no real fighting, and just held it. And it's much smaller and it didn't resist. And it was done explicitly for the oil. But in a sense, it's the same kind of territorial expansion and aggression. Yep. And oh, here's another difference. Kuwait was a kingdom, a sheikdom, or whatever, an authoritarian regime. Ukraine was a free country. So Russia invading Ukraine is much worse because it's invading a free country. Cook says, man, this is both maddening and demoralizing. Yep, it really, really is. Jamie from Canada, Mehdi Hassan, says that what's happening to Iranian people is terrible, but the U.S. and Israel should stay out of it. Why does he say this? Shouldn't they act to save lives? I don't know why he says that, and I don't agree with him. I think the U.S. and Israel should do what they can to help the Iranian people from the air without putting troops on the ground. Israel with Mossad agents on the ground. But I don't see any reason why Iran shouldn't get some external help. Marius, Trump talked about suspending midterms twice now. Yeah, I know. He talked about there shouldn't be elections, but I still think that's just talk, but who knows with Trump? And if they do happen, does he overturn them? So do they count it out? Gabriel, discovered you via Peterson Academy. Wow. Thought you were a finance guy, but your work taught me way more after. Congrats on MVP of the year. More classes on PA. Well, I think if you're on PA, I've got 5 courses on PA. So not just finance, and I've got 5: capitalism, finance, trade, corporation, and money. Those 5 courses. They haven't asked me to do more courses yet. They claim they will, but they haven't yet, so I have nothing scheduled. If you, write them an email or send them a text saying, hey, Yaron was great, please having on some more. That would be fantastic. Anything to help me get on would be great. But thank you, Gabriel, and wow, I'm excited by the fact that some people have discovered me via Peterson Academy and are coming over to the show and getting more. That's great. Marius, why does no anyone sue ICE violating due process? They are suing. There are lawsuits already. There's one by IJ. There are others. There will be a whole bunch of lawsuits. It just takes time before they make the courts and make the news. But there are lawsuits out there. Jason says, I missed the start. Why do you think the EU is not demanding a shared Greenland, enclaves for the natives, then zero tariffs for the EU and a liberal reformed immigration policy between the US and EU? I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure that's even on the table. They just don't. Why should they cut a deal with Trump at all? Why shouldn't they just say Greenland's out, Greenland belongs to Denmark, butt out? I'm not sure what immigration has to do with it or any of these other things have to do with it. They don't believe in zero tariffs, and I don't think they want reformed. They don't want an open immigration system. They don't want to give up. They don't want to be bullied, I think is the bottom line. I think if Trump had approached this differently, maybe he could have cut a deal. But I don't think Europe wants to be bullied, and I don't think they should be bullied. Jamie from Canada. Appeal court in Canada calls use of emergency act wrong. What should Trudeau's punishment be? Anything you didn't like about truckers' protest? Was it okay to park on roads? What was your overall take? I didn't like the fact that they parked on roads and they honked all night and kept people awake, and they shut off, I think, big chunks of Toronto, if I remember right. I wasn't in support of that. I understand their frustration. I understand what they were trying to do. I side with what they were demanding. I'm just not a big fan of that technique. I'm glad the appeal court said the Emergency Act was wrong. I don't know. You don't really punish Trudeau. What you do is you reverse all the damage that was done, and maybe these people deserve penalties. That the government pay a penalty to the people involved. Jamie says, asked Alex if you preferred Biden. Trump said Trump due to energy policies. Do you agree? I mean, I don't, because I agree vis-a-vis energy, but I have to take a broader perspective, and from a broader perspective, that's not enough. I mean, Trump is doing so much damage to America. So much damage to America's constitutional order, to the psyche of America, to America's standing in the world, to national security, to its allies, that I don't know if energy is enough to trump all that. Jeffrey Miller, I am as of 7:30 Eastern Time, a Patreon member. Thank you, Jeffrey. I appreciate that. Thank you. Coming to New York in June, I think, first week in June. So let's do something together. My wife and I will be there. So let's plan on something. Jamie, when is it too late to abort? I'm pro-choice, but a clump of cells seems awfully different from a fully formed baby that's just a week or two from birth. It depends what you mean too late to abort. The fact is that no doctor will abort a fetus a week or two before birth unless there's something very wrong with it or there's some other crazy condition that's happening. It just doesn't happen. So again, 93% of all abortions happen in the first 21 weeks. And almost none happen in the last month. So it's a very rare thing, and it only happens when there's something very wrong with the baby. So it's okay to abort until birth, but it just doesn't happen because doctors won't do it. It's not healthy. It's not good for the mother, and they don't like doing it, and there's no reason to do it. If the mother has carried it to that point, there's zero rational reason to abort at that point, unless something's wrong with it. All right, I'm going to take this from the chat because this is good. The Real Elvish Rope says, hey, Yaron, would you ever come to Canada and do a talk seminar on objectivism and capitalism? Yes. I mean, if you can round up the money for me to come and do it, then absolutely. So if we can get a group together that'll do it, and there's enough money to pay me, then I will come. So, I mean, bottom line is, if you can do that, email me, Yaron at yaronbrookshow.com, yaron@yaronbrookshow.com. Just send me an email and we'll coordinate it. But, it has to be and I'll tell you how much I need, depending on what exactly you want. But yeah, absolutely. Love to do it. More Jamie from Canada. Are soft covers, hard covers of your books identical? Sometimes authors include extra in the latter. Identical. No difference between them. Jonathan, should Dems impeach Pam Bundy for violating Epstein file release law if they win the midterms, forcing Senate Republicans to vote on the issue? Yes, but they should also impeach Trump. They should impeach, I guess if they do Bundy, I don't know if they can do Holman. They should impeach. Yeah, absolutely. And not just Epstein file. They should impeach them over ICE. Oh, Homeland Security. They should impeach Noam. They should impeach Noam and Bondi and Trump. Yes, absolutely. There's plenty of reason to do all of them. Jonathan says, seems Destiny was vindicated over the allegations. There seem to be always new allegations around Destiny. I don't know, and I don't have the time to look into it. G. Geffrey, thank you for the sticker. I think I caught all the other stickers before. Okay, last question. Jamie from Canada. Canada has no term limits for PM. Why does U.S., should they not, or should Canada have a limit? I think because it's very different systems. I think the executive in the U.S. has more power than a PM. A PM has checks and balances in a sense within his political party, and usually there's coalitions in parliamentary systems. In the U.S., it's a presidential system. They basically did it because FDR won 4 elections, and everybody thought that was ridiculous, and it was becoming imperial. There was a understanding of only doing 2 because George Washington left after 2, but it became a constitution in the Constitution after FDR won 4, and that seemed to be too much power. It was an effort to reduce the power of the president, and I think it's a good idea. All right, guys, thank you. I appreciate the support. Thanks to all the super chatters. I will see you guys tomorrow for another news show, and have a great rest of your week. Bye, everybody.